My name is Juliana Nykolaiszyn. Also with me is Tanya Finchum. We're with the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program at the OSU Library. And today we're interviewing Donald and Sue Peters in Maud, Oklahoma. We're here today to talk about your family's Centennial Farm, the Peters Farms. And we're so happy you're with us today. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Well, let's begin by learning a little bit more about your family. How did your family come to this part of Oklahoma?
Well, my granddad came from Germany, and they say he was in 17 states before he ever landed here. He was in the land run of '89, but he didn't get any land, so there's no record of it. But I know he was. I've got a little bit of proof right there. And then he evidently was living in Kansas, and there were some Indians living in that area that had the allotment of this home place out here. Well, he ended up buying 160 acres off of them out of the 240 acres that he owned. And then he came down here, and that was in 95. Then in 1902, he bought another 80 acres from this same allotment, and that's the way we ended up with the property. Some of them thought he got land in the land run, but he didn't. We researched it, and he did not get any land. And they thought he got the land and traded for this place, but he didn't. He bought it. Anyway, that's the way we ended up with the property.
And how many acres did he buy?
Well, the first time he bought, he got 160 acres, and then in '02 he got another 80 acres to go with that, makes him 240 acres there, and that's what's still out there.
And was he a farmer by trade?
You know, yes and no. He did a little bit of everything. He was one of these persons that wasn't afraid to take a chance, and that he was into everything. I've got stocks where he bought stock,
Oil stock.
and brought land. He owned more land than that 240 acres that we own in the next section there, and he was quite a go-getter. I tell you, he was all over. I've got a picture of him at Raymondville, Texas, of all places, where he's down there on one of these land promotion deals, and there he is, right on the front row. And but he didn't buy any land down there, I'm pretty sure. But anyway, that's just the kind of person he was. And my wife told me, and I've even forgotten it, but he brought books with him from Germany on livestock and farming and what have you.
Educational books.
And he was more or less just self-taught as far as coming to the farm. And
As far as we know.
yes, as far as we know.
Well, was he married when he came to Oklahoma?
No, he was 28 years old. And we have the ship name and everything where he came over, and we're just 99% sure that that is him, because it lists him at 28 years old and all the other information about it, and we're just sure that's him. But I know he was 28 years old when he got here.
And he married in '97.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
he had the place for two years. Then he married a Swanda,
Antonia Swanda.
and they lived.
She also came here. She came as a child. She was 8 when she came with her parents.
And her daddy was in the land run down around Lexington, and he was successful in getting land. But and how they met, I don't really know. we kind of suspicious they might have known each other back up in Kansas and Nebraska. So,
The families may have known each other. She was 20 years younger than him.
that's probably
Yeah.
right.
No,
Yeah.
10 years. He was
Okay.
28 when they married. No, he was 37. Gosh,
No,
he
he's
was-
30.
37 and she was 18. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, almost 20.
Yeah.
But we nearly sure that they probably knew each other up in Kansas and Nebraska. But far as proof, we don't have it.
Well, you know, he was self-taught. He read a lot of books about farming. What was happening on the farm? What was he, any idea of what he was growing or the livestock?
Yeah, we got pictures there that he had cattle looked like they was Holstein mixed. He had hogs. He had bees. What else? Chickens.
Chickens. Yeah.
They had about
Cattle.
everything they needed to live there, you know, as far as, except, you know, like flour and stuff like that. But
And they sold their extra eggs or butter or milk or hams. You know, he smoked all his own meat, and they sold what they didn't need to eat.
I found a old bank up here. They built a new bank, and the people that owned it gave the Historical Society the old bank. Well, it's got an upstairs in it, and we was up there, I don't know, several months after we obtained it, and we was in one of the rooms upstairs and walked over and picked up a little ledger. Guess whose name was on the front page? It's my grandpa. He had brought the first
Sold cotton.
cotton into Maud. I thought, well, how lucky
luck.
could I be? But anyway, they raised cotton, and I know they raised peanuts and hay.
High gear.
Trying to think something about mostly
What's high gear?
hay. You know,
What's high gear?
it's
It's a feed.
head. It's got the little
Maize.
Maize.
Do you know what maize is?
Mhm.
Same thing.
Okay.
Same type thing.
Yeah, I didn't know it till I read that little ledger that they brought the cotton into Maud, you know. And, you know, of course, he could take it to Tecumseh or Earlsboro. They had a rail line in through there, but I would think it was either Maud or Tecumseh.
Well, they had at least 2 cotton gins here at that time.
Mhm.
Yeah. We used to be a pretty good sized town.
And I think probably like on the hogs and stuff, he kind of bartered that stuff, you know, different ones. So I say he knew how to make a dollar.
Well, tell me about the structures on the farm when he was coming up.
Okay, well, let's just start with the hen house. It was right out to the south and a little bit east of the house, and just a short distance where they kept the chickens, and then right on around was what we always referred to as the old granary, and it's set up. You had to step up pretty high to get in it, but that's where it was. And then behind it, there was a shop, blacksmith shop. They had the old coal forge, you know. I can remember going back and watching Daddy eat at metal and what have you. And then north of that was the main barn. It was a pretty good sized barn because it had a loft in it and a shed on the west side of it. And then right on north of that, that was where the hog pen was and the building for them. And then west of that was a big cow lot where I remember Daddy going out there milking all the time. And then finally fixed part of the barn where we put stanchions in there, put the cows in there, and milk in there. And one other little building out there, and I don't really know what its first purpose was, but later years Daddy ground feed, and that's where he blew it into from the grinder. And I can remember that as well, because it wasn't nothing but dust out there whenever he was grinding. And I guess that's
The little shop.
the cellar.
South of the house.
Huh?
The little shop where the Delco system was
That's
later
garage,
years.
okay.
Yeah, the
There was
cellar.
a garage out there, and of course, whenever I was a kid, all we had was kerosene lamps. And one of the biggest improvements was when they put a Delco system out there. You at least had lights, you know. It made all the difference in the world. At that, and then the cellar was built right from here, that wall from the back door,
East door.
southeast door. And you could step out and take 2 steps and be in the cellar.
It's big as our
And it's still
kitchen
a
or
good cellar
bigger.
right now. It just needs a little work done on the door, but that's all the buildings that I can think of.
The house. No, the log cabin.
I was going to ask you
They lived in
where
the
he
log
lived at first.
cabin.
Yeah, but I don't know exactly where it was from the main
Yeah.
house now. Well, you got pictures here someplace that.
Did he build the cabin?
Oh, I'm sure he did. He built everything else.
And eventually they moved into a house?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Whenever he first got that land, it was just raw land. That's all it was. Nothing else. And the story is that there's a little ditch runs down the east of it, and then it curves back to the west. And they said he lived along that ditch in the rocks till he got a place built for him to stay in. And I'd always thought it was on the east, but you get to looking at it and you don't believe that. When it turns back west, there's rocks there that'd be ideal for camping, you know. So I'm pretty sure that's where he stayed.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a little ways from the house up the hill there, but
He stayed along the creek so he'd have water
Mm-hmm.
because there wasn't a well there yet, which they dug their well too. It was up by the house.
well, they probably had that drill. I don't.
Think they did.
Yeah. Well, it's a small hole they had.
Well, tell me about the house that was eventually built.
Okay, the main house, as it is today, was built in 3 different sections. The first section was 2 bedrooms, and I don't know how long they lived in it. Then they built 2 rooms on the east of it, and then a little later they built an upstairs and a big room down over the big room there, which we call the living room now. So it was built in 3 different parts. And the last part, we think, was built in 1920, 22, because I may be telling too much here, but it's got a wraparound cement porch on it. It was nice in those days, I'll guarantee you. And in the corner, they had a print of a big leaf in the stem, and on it they had a date of 1922. So that was when that porch was run. So if you count back, it probably took them 6 months or maybe a year to build that front 2 rooms and the upstairs. So that's when they finally finished it. And,
How was it heated?
well, wood start off with, I'm sure, and then in fact that's what we burnt whenever I was a little kid. And
Your mother too?
yeah,
She liked the wood stove.
I remember
Even with
having wood
propane.
piled out just east of the house there. Then in later year, or around 40, they started drilling in the gas line. Daddy laid a gas line over where he'd get gas. And we had gas. But the only thing about that is kind of smoky rooms up you wasn't. Anyway, that went on till they made us get off of it, and then we went to propane, or actually butane. You know, that's where they put the tank in the ground. I can remember that just as well. To keep it kind of heated up, enough pressure to get out of there, but everybody burns propane now because it's got so much more pressure. And then anyway, that's what we burn out there now as far as heat and cooking.
How many children did your grandfather have?
Had 9, wasn't it?
No,
Uh,
7.
Willie, Antone, John, Daddy, Jasper,
Anna, Jasper.
Annie, Harry.
7.
Yeah, 7. Daddy was
6
the middle.
boys and 1 girl.
And did they all help out on the farm?
Sure they did.
Well, tell me a little bit about your father.
Well, he was the middle of he was the 4th boy. And he ended up with a place after Grandpa passed away. My grandpa and grandma decided they wanted to go to Sulphur and take the mineral baths. This was in about 1927 because I've got deeds of where they bought a house down in Sulphur. My uncle, John, which was the 3rd child, and his wife moved in because they was living in a little old 2 or 3 room house, which they called a weaning house, down below the hill. So they moved up there in that house. Well, in 36 or 37, they moved out to their own house over back west, and Mother and Daddy moved into the house. And that's where we lived. I was born a mile from there. It's half north and half west. And I didn't know it till just recently, but the house we lived in, my Uncle John and them, Grandpa moved it for them to their place, and then we moved into the home place. Anyway, that went on for, I don't know exactly what year, but it had to be in the late 30s. Daddy knew that Grandpa and Grandma were getting homesick for the home. And my mother told me, said every time we'd go down there, Grandpa would say, tell Daddy, said, don't forget to bring my high gear for my chickens. So Daddy'd bag up a bunch of that feed and take down to his engine. Anyway, Daddy asked one time, he said, Dad said, you're homesick, would you like to move back up there? Of course, that was all it took. Yeah. They moved in with us. They took the 2 south rooms of the house, and we kept the rest of it. And anyway, that ran along there till Grandpa died in 41. And I guess that's about it. Anyway, I've been lost. Which question you asked me?
Tell her about your dogs.
Well, I guess I finished up. Daddy, he took up the farming and did mostly hay, and I remember him raising peanuts. and
Cattle.
cattle. But when they did the hay, all the people come in, I mean, not all of them, but
Neighbors.
any other neighbors that had hay themselves, you know, and they kind of shared one old horse-drawn baler, you know, where they went around and around. And I still got it out there at the house. But then later years, he got the roustabout and all these, was drilling oil back over there. And he got pumper and went ahead and raised cattle and hay farm. That's about the extent of his farming.
So he also worked off the farm a little bit.
Yes. Yeah, you know, later, I can see where they could make a living early on, but later on, I don't see how they could, you know, in the later years.
Well, going back to your father for a second, did he ever share with you memories of growing up on the land and what some of his work would entail as a young man, or?
Well,
He helped haul the rocks for the front porch.
yeah, they,
Said they moved rocks forever from the creek to fill. You'll have to see the porch to see why.
yeah, it got to where it was cracked so bad that when Sue and my sister didn't want the place, so I bought her part, and that cement porch was cracked so bad and it's lipping up, and you know, where you trip over it and whatever. We decided we'd build a new porch, so we started digging that stuff out. I bet there's no telling how many wheelbarrows or wagon loads of little rocks about this big. They must have picked them up in a mile radius of that house. But anyway, I hauled a bunch of them out. I had too many of them to run cement back. And anyway, now as far as him telling me any stories, I can't think of any right now. Of course,
Where did he go to school?
he went to what they call OOHRP, and then that later years they moved that school south. And that's where I went to grade school, New Remus. And
Your mama went to Harjo.
my mother went to Harjo. And I don't think Daddy went any further than that grade school. I know my uncle did, because he's one of the first graduates out of Malta High School.
What did your grandmother do for a living, or was she just help take
She's
care
a
of the family?
Homemaker, and you know.
Helped take care of her daddy. Her mother had died.
Okay.
Kind of looked after. Of course, they were at Noble, but still,
Mm-hmm.
you know, if they needed help, she went to help. You could imagine having 7 kids and go help.
Well, how did your father meet your mother?
Well, I suppose it probably at the church.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, we went to church either to Remus School or Pleasant Valley. I can remember going to both of them. And then in later years, Daddy and several of the men built a rock church out there. It's what's known as a rock church, because that's exactly what it is. And I know, remembering Daddy telling, said that's back there when the tires were hard to get, you know. And they would haul these rocks from one of the men's place, which was probably about 2 or 3 miles from that church. And they'd put them in old pickups or in the turtle back of a car, just any way to get them back over there. And he said we were forever patching tires, blowing those tires out, and they had to stop and patch those tires before they'd go on. But anyway, it was quite a struggle to get that church built. But then that's when we all started going to the Rock Church, Fairview Church. And,
Well, he had 7 brothers and a sister, 7 siblings.
5 brothers.
Okay.
5 brothers and a
5.
sister.
Okay, so there were
Yeah.
6 siblings.
Right.
How did the farm come into his possession?
okay, the oldest boy, which was Willie, born in '98, died when he was 28 years old, I think it was, 28 or 30. He got he was plowing or something, working in a field, and it came a rain, he got pneumonia, and he died. And then the second son was my Uncle Anton, and I think he already had a house over on some of the other land. And Uncle John was the one that moved into the house when they went to Sulphur. And then, of course, we were living over there, it wasn't too far from it. But the other kids really didn't care anything about the land.
Well, they were in Sulphur.
Yeah, they moved to Sulphur,
Actually,
and
by
they went to
then?
school at Sulphur down there. But when it was all divided up, well, let me back up. Mother told me that Grandpa asked Daddy, I think that's when they moved back up there with him. He asked Daddy, he said, would you like to have this farm, this one here? Daddy said, yeah, sure I would. And so he said, well, so when I guess he already had it set up because Daddy took that place and Uncle Anton took some land there and Uncle John. So that was the first 3 of the sons right there. The other one, the oldest one, had already died. But the other kids didn't want land, they wanted money or stuff. So they switched it around and that's the way they did it.
Mm-hmm.
And Daddy ended up with the place.
Well, when you moved to the farmhouse, let's talk about your life growing up. Where was your room?
Well, about everyone. Well, I can remember sleeping upstairs, and I remember sleeping on the porch, and I remember sleeping in what was one of the south rooms there, because whenever it was storm, you got up and you went to the cellar. And I rolled out of that bed and go to the cellar. But anyway, that's where I was sleeping, that I really remember going to the cellar. But yes, I slept all over. But
How would you keep warm?
well, pile on enough quilts, that's the main thing. But that upstairs wasn't heated.
Mm-hmm.
Just whatever heat you got was
Came
heat
upstairs.
that drifted up the stairwell.
What was bath time like?
What was what?
Bath
Bath.
time. Taking a bath.
The old wash tub.
Oh,
You did.
yeah, that was what took, had to draw the water and they would heat it outside in a wood fire and carry it in and dump it in that tub, and you got it the right temperature and jump in. But
That's why our EA was nice when it came through.
yeah.
What year did it come through? What year did you get electricity?
REA
Oh Lord,
in the 40s, early 40s.
well, we were still burning, had Delco system when Grandpa died, so
Well, that was
it had to be in
41.
the late 40s.
What about when your grandma moved over into her house.
Well,
Did you have electricity then?
I don't remember that. I really don't.
It was
Okay.
around the mid-40s, somewhere along there.
Yeah, a little later maybe.
Did you have
Mid-
brothers and sisters?
One sister.
Okay. So let's talk about some of your chores growing up.
My chores.
Uh-huh.
Well, of course, when I was real little, I, entertained myself. And then neighbors moved in, and they had a little boy a little bit younger than myself. And we became pretty good pals. We were either, he was at our house or I was over there. They just lived across the road from us. And then my chores after I got on older was, I know one I really remember. We were milking, Daddy was milking some cows, and that's after we moved the milking parlor, you'd call it, I guess, to the main barn, and Daddy got in there and built some stanchions to hold them, steady and everything. And that's about time he went to helping roustabout over there. And he had told me one day, he said, if you'll help me milk those cows and take care of them, he said, you can have the cream to sell. And I said, okay. So that's what I did. I'd milk and it'd take me forever. Daddy just sat down and just keep going. And I'd give out about 3 or 4 jerks, But I'd milk those cows, and take the milk, put it in the separator, and turn it and crank it out, and save the cream, and turn the milk over to Mother. And that was one of my main jobs, and I imagine carrying in wood would be another one. And then after I got a little older, but then Daddy had that OOHRP tractor, and I got to where I could work it, and like mowing or plowing or something like that. And
You remember the first time you got to drive the tractor?
not really, because it just kind of, just something natural for me,
And what year were you born?
34.
Okay.
Yeah. I was about 2 years old when we moved into that place.
You helped with the hay too.
Yeah, helped bail. We had the old horse-drawn baler where the horse walked around in circles. Well, that was my job whenever I was smaller. Sitting on a bale of hay and keeping that horse, chunking rocks at him and like I guess I'd better call it beanie flip, and shoot the old horse and got too slow. Well, I got to where I was thinking that I would be able to step up one to the rake, dump rake. Of course, they already had somebody running that, so I guess I was kind of puffed up and pouting about it. One day they'd set up on the meadow, and Daddy, I guess, saw that I wasn't too interested in my work. He walked over and got me by the hand, and they just got through drilling the well about pardon here at the cattle yard over there. And we walked over and got down behind that bank of that slush pit. I got a pretty good spanking, and I was tickled to death to keep that horse going from that on. But finally, I guess, I don't think I ever did get to move up till I got old enough to work for my uncle, and I got to rake all I wanted to there.
Did you have any pets growing up?
Pet? Yes. I had the two are most fond of, and which I remember was two big collie dogs. And Daddy was mowing oats, I think it was, up on the prairie, and those dogs, might not have had both of them at the time, but this one went up there with him, and Daddy didn't see him. And he cut his paw off, one of his paws off. Well, Daddy doctored him, and he got to where it didn't slow him down. He'd go just as fast as the other dog. Anyway, we ended up with another dog that my grandpa had a litter of, and he gave Daddy one of them. Well, I'd take those dogs and put a rope around their neck and tie it, wouldn't tighten up and choke them. And I'd work them. I'd hook them in my little wagon and fill it with dirt or whatever. Well, that was after Grandpa and him, I guess, moved back up there. And he was out there one day, and I was working, pulling them, leading them, and they was pulling. And Grandpa walked up and he said, "Son, that's hurting those dogs." Said, "Let me make you some harness." So he went down in the shop. I don't know how long it took him. I just remember he made me a little set of harness for the dog. And I've got a picture someplace. But anyway, those two dogs were the ones I remember the most.
What were their names?
Tip and Jack. I had another little dog, and before that, I think we called him Bulger for some reason or another. I don't know where we even got that name, but he was a little black dog about so high. But my uncle had sheep, and I think he got to going over visiting and aggravating those sheep, and it cost him dearly, because he never did show up after that. Anyway, we ended up getting the collie dogs then.
Growing up, how would you get to school?
Walk. And it was close to 2 miles one way. But we'd cut through the pasture any way we could cut off a few steps, we'd do it. I remember that we had an old bridge that we had to cross, and it came up pretty good rain, I guess. Washed that bridge out. And Daddy went over there and had pipes, and had a tube of 4s or a tube of 12 or something bolted to those pipes, and where they wouldn't wash out. And Daddy told us, if y'all ever go over there and it's looking like the water's gonna come up, don't you cross that crossing. That you just come back home. It's been many a time, well, I said several times, it's sprinkled on us and we turn around and go back. That's all it took. He shouldn't have told us that. But I remember that. And we lived here, and then across the road there, across the pond was there. Our neighbors lived, they would come across that pond out, and we'd watch for them, and we'd walk out and meet them. We'd go on over to what was the OOHRP camp and pick up, meet up with 2 or 3 other kids over there. Then we'd walk on to school, and sometimes we'd meet some other kids on the way, but it kind of helped break up the monotony, I guess, of it. One funny story I still think about. And one day we started home from school, and one of the kids told me, said, "Your sister and Jim are going to fight these other 2 girls, have a fight down in just a little bit." golly, I started worrying about that. I thought, my sister couldn't whoop nothing, let alone that old gal. And I worried about that and worried about it. We got down a T in the road. Well, this friend of my sister's, she was the first one to fight one of the other girls. I'll tell you what, she was like the buzzsaw. She whipped that old gal before she even knew what happened. That ended the whole fight. I was so relieved. Wanda didn't have to fight. Thank goodness she didn't. Thank God. I knew she was going to get fire beat out of her. But there's always somebody getting in a fight, seems like. There's quite a few of us walking.
Would you take your lunch?
Yes.
What would you take for lunch?
Well, I tell you what, it was always potted meat or Viennese sausage. Seemed to me like. And maybe a apple or something, I don't know. And a friend of mine, I still think about him, every day he brought fried bologna sandwiches. Every day, just like me with potted meat or Viennese sausage. That was, I knew what I was going to have. And one day we went out there, sat down on tater totters, I think, going to eat lunch, and I said, one of them, I don't know whether he said it first, he said, "You want a trade sandwich?" Man, we jumped at the deal. That was quite a relief to get. But, yeah, that's about all we ever.
Said he always took his scrap bread home to his dog.
Yeah. That's fun. Those dogs would meet us half a mile over before we got home because they knew they was going to get a little treat. Anyway, it's quite a lot of memories there.
Did your mom work off the farm?
No, she stayed home. She, she was brought to the Home Demonstration Club. She used to quilt a lot. I can remember them coming, hanging those frames from the ceiling. All of them sitting around and quilting. But she raised a garden, always had a garden, always canned, and we always had.
Helped your daddy put up honey.
Yeah.
They raised honey.
Yeah.
Had honeybees.
We had that cellar there, and it was always had all kinds of canned stuff down there in the cellar. So. But no, she stayed on the farm worked there all the time.
What were holidays like?
Well, we always, my mother's sister, I think they had 10 kids. One of them's my age, and then there's all different ages. But that was always a big treat for them to come see us, you know. We'd go down that old barn, had that loft, we'd have the biggest time.
Ride the horses.
Yeah, ride horses, or that pond down there, it's always swimming down there if it's in the summertime. And one little story of that swimming deal, my aunt had the last boy she had, he was just a little old feller, and we'd been swimming, and they had left, Mother and Daddy and Ethel and Uncle Earl went somewhere for a while and left one of the older girls in charge. Well, we went swimming and we got through and we come back and we was upstairs and the boys were, and we was changing clothes, and they come driving up the road back. This little one had got out, crawled out the window, stark naked. Where that roof comes up like that, he was standing straddle that. They drove up that road and saw him up there, and they like to die. He wasn't very old.
About 3. He was about 3.
They's always doing something, entertainment.
What about Christmas time?
That was always a time we really looked forward to, but Christmas back there then is a whole lot different than it is now. I got one toy. My sister got one toy. It's not like that now. You know, my grandkids, they've got enough toys to
Open the toy
start a
store.
store if they mind to, but it's a whole lot different. But I had just as much fun with that one toy as they did with all theirs now, because it was the only thing I had and I played with it. And that's the thing, whenever I got a little bit, I don't know how old I was still playing with toys. I built my own little tractor out of a 4x4. Put wheels on it and I pulled a little fixed a little buck rake. We'd mow that grass out there and I'd put it in the rows and take that little buck rake, I'd pick it up and everything. Anyway, that entertained me a bunch right there.
Would you go to town much?
Well, back there then, we'd go on Saturday nights, Saturday evenings.
And what would you do?
Well, we'd go to the show, and Mom and Daddy would meet the neighbors, and they'd visit, go to the drugstore, and have some ice cream or something or other. But back there then, you couldn't find a parking place at Maud on Saturday night unless you got there early. Every street up and down there, every parking place would be taken. It was something else, and, you know.
Well, it was even that way whenever we married. Well, even when we moved back here in '73, you would, it wasn't unusual to have to circle the block. If you wanted on Main Street, you circle the block 2 or 3 times before you were lucky enough maybe to get a parking space.
Mm-hmm.
But
other than going to town, that's about the only time.
go to Shawnee once in a while.
Mother used to take me, I'd go with her and my sister, which I really didn't care about, but I'd rather stay at home. But I had to go, and that's while I was pretty young, but I remember it. We'd get crasses up there, the county assembly like this way up there. And I was scared to death Mother was going to run off and leave me, so I held on to her dress. She'd always slapping me loose, knocking me loose, and I'd turn around and grab it again. And I told her later years, I told her, I said, you wanted to try to run off and leave me, I know good and well, and that's the reason I'd done that. It'd get her, but it aggravated her, I know good and well, for having somebody hang on her dress tail.
Well, after high school, what did you end up doing? Did you start just working on the farm, or?
Well, doing what needed to be done out there. But Daddy was still, I'd help him some. But when I got out of high school, I shouldn't tell you this. I went to OSU for a semester. Sue wrote it down as a year, but it was one semester. Me and another boy I ran around with, both decided we'd go down there, and then after that one semester, we both decided we was coming back to Maud. He went to OBU and I went to work. So,
And you kept working.
yeah, I kept working and working.
And did you work on the farm, or did you have another job?
Well, I worked at a grocery store. My brother-in-law's daddy had old Daniel's grocery there, and Curtis wanted me to come to work up there, which I did, and I stayed with him for, well, was it our
About 2
first-
years after
our
we were
first
married.
boy was about 6 months.
8 months old,
8
Mike
months
was
old,
when we
and I went
moved.
to work, out at Silver, Texas, at a gas plant. Her daddy was superintendent, and he told me if I'd come out there, he'd give me a job. Well, I'd like to. I couldn't hardly stand leaving here, but for the money, I had to do something. But anyway, that's what I did, and we ended up coming back and living right across the road. That was after we bought this place, and then we built this house and moved in here, and we've been here ever since.
Well, tell me how you two met.
Well, she started chasing me, and I let her catch me.
Good answer.
No, when I was working in this grocery store, I met every girl that come to town. If they come in and visit them or somebody, I knew about it, most generally. Well, her grandmother, her step-grandmother, she's one of these persons that she had ideas about everything. She done had it made up that she's gonna see that me and Sue got together, and we did. And I hadn't been disappointed at all.
That's
Have you?
good. No, that's good though.
Uh,
Oh, we tell
Let's
the
hear your
kids.
version.
We tell the kids, our kids and our grandkids every year when we go to the rodeo that was supposed to be our first date. Was Dawn called and wanted to know were we going to go. They were going to do roping that night, and at that time he was calf roping. And so he wanted to know could we come in, my aunt and her friends and I come in and meet him at the rodeo arena. So we went, and of all times he had to work late. So they got bored and we had to leave. So we
know each other.
crossed paths, and that didn't stop though. He called, and the rest is history.
How long have you been married?
60 years here in about 3 months.
2 months.
Two
Yeah,
more
3.
three.
Yeah, December 12th, 60 years. Yep.
And he hasn't been disappointed.
Nope.
That's good.
I tell the story. They asked, how did y'all meet? I usually tell them, I said, well, she got me out of the cradle.
He tells me that a lot. Got him out of the cradle and threw him out in the cruel world. But
Well,
Yeah.
at what point, when did you buy the farm?
I was working in down north of Whitesboro, the gas plant down there, and I came home. I leave here on Monday morning, about 2 o'clock in the morning, drive down there. And I had a mobile home there on Lake Texoma, and I'd stay Monday night, and then Tuesday evening I'd drive home and go back Wednesday morning. Anyway, I was back and forth. But what I did, I worked that in with taking care of her cows, you know. I'd come by there of evening coming home, and I'd feed the cows for that day and then put out hay for another day in a lot or something. And all Mother had to do just go down and open the gate and let the cows in. That's the way I worked all that. And anyway, she stayed there till she died in 82.
in 2002.
2002, yeah.
And we bought his sister's half.
She didn't want it, and I couldn't stand for anybody else having it. If she'd want to keep her half and run it together, that was fine with me. But I did not want anybody else owning that place. That's just how I felt about it. And she agreed to sell, and they knew I'd help mother a lot, and so they should got more for their part, but they didn't. So we bought it.
Well, when you bought it, what did you plan to do with it at that point?
Well, we already had this place, and I knew I could run some cattle out there and help pay for it, but I just wanted the place. And the first thing we did was start fixing up the house. It deteriorated. It had wood siding on it, cracked, and everything. And we went through there and put new siding on it and did some changes for the better, I think.
Made improvements to the house.
Barn.
Well, yeah, I burnt the barn down before Margaret died.
Did you really?
Yes, he really did. Accidentally, but he did.
Okay.
My back, pickup in there, pick up a round bale, and it's spitting. And I guess I got that exhaust pipe close to this one bale, and I was having trouble picking that bale up. It kept falling off, and I finally looked, and I thought, well, something ain't right. And I pulled up, and that bale was smoking and began to burn. I got excited, and tried to get that bale that was burning and get it out of there, and I couldn't do that. I guess when I pulled forward, going back up to get that, and it was burning, I forgot and left my door open on the pickup. Like tore it off, backing up in there. But you get excited when something like that happens. And I hollered at Mother, and
She called the family and the fire department.
yeah, I told her I'd call the fire department, and we started putting together water hose. Got water out there, and that well makes water, but not near enough of it. And Daddy built the barn out of these crystal poles, 6x6, I think what they were. They came out of these wall tanks for support inside. And those things just like burning gasoline. I'd put them out and look around and try to get something else out, and they'd turn back and they was burning again. I couldn't stop it. Finally run out of water, and run out of breath and everything else. And so I just had to back off and let it go.
Everybody got there, but it was already gone pretty much by the time we got out there.
But got a new barn out of it.
Yeah. Got the barn that's currently there.
Anyway, we've just been doing improvements.
A new herd of cattle
Yeah.
right after we got it.
One of our sons, he and his wife split up, and they was getting a divorce, and she wanted to stay in their house till she bought her house. And anyway, Tony wanted to move out there, so he moved out there. He does dozer work, and he builds a lot of locations around here. And he got started doing a lot of dozer work out there. Not charging me anything, because I didn't charge anything for rent. And we cleaned out 3 ponds, I think it was. That's back there when it was
So dry.
so dry.
Mm-hmm. The pond had shrunk to this.
Improved them a whole bunch. And tried to build a new fence all the way around it too. And just, general
Upkeep.
improvements in it,
Well, through the years, did your family take on any conservation efforts on the land?
Well, you know what? Early on, my grandpa knew about conservation because his father-in-law came up there with trash set and everything and laid off terraces up on that upper part, and those terraces are still there. Yeah, they did that. And
And that would have been back, what, in the 30s?
well, probably so.
I bet it
Or-
was
well, no,
because
it'd
we
been-
had
it'd been-
pictures
it'd
of
been-
where he was up there.
No, it had to be in the
20s?
teens
Okay.
because I've got a picture
Well, I
there
guess
someplace
so,
where
because the kids were little.
he's in a buggy, him and another, I guess one of his boys.
His son,
That
that was
they lived down at
Noble.
Noble and Lexington down in there.
Well, what's the water source on the land?
Well, there was a water well, but like I say, I think it caved in years ago at the very bottom of it, but it still had enough where you could draw water out of it, and even had enough to run the house. Mother, she was a pro at saving
Conserv,
water,
being conservative.
and
Well,
that's what we had whenever I remember. But I know that they drilled a well right down in front of the house because they had built a cement trough. It's still out there. And that well was right down in a little low spot. And I guess they drilled that water up and put it in buckets, and then it wasn't,
watered the cows.
no, it wasn't just you feed over to it. Or I don't know whether they had something piped, to carry the water over. But anyway, that, and then when Grandma came back from Sulphur, I think that's when he built that big pond, had it built. And now we've got all kinds of water for the cattle, but there's also a Potawatomi County Water District and I had Mother sign up for it whenever they came around wanting people to sign up, because I knew it was be a good deal. Go ahead and get on the list, instead of waiting, because it costs quite a bit. If they lay that line past you and you don't join up, then if they have to come back, then you got to pay for it, So anyway, I
Well,
knew
plus
that,
it gave her a lot better water system.
yeah.
An abundant supply, put
Yeah.
it that way.
I don't know. It probably don't taste as good as the wet well water, but there's a bunch of it,
We're spoiled to well water.
Now, is your farm in both counties or just one county?
We're in 2 counties.
Has that been challenging through the years? Being in 2 different counties?
This is in Seminole County. That road right out there is county line.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And
across the road
6
is
mile
Pop.
out there is where the place is.
Okay.
But
And just pay taxes in 2 counties. Basically. Yeah.
Well, if you went to the county fair, which county fair did you pick?
Probably
show you.
Pot County, because that was where Dawn's mother would have taken her when she was home demonstration. It was in Pot County, and that's where they took their canned goods and sewing and yeah.
yeah.
Actually, I think I won 1 ribbon in sewing up there right after we married.
Do you remember the name of the local club?
Yeah, it was
Remus.
Remus Potawatomi. Yeah, Remus Home Demonstration Club. Yeah,
Used to be several women belonged to it.
right. Yeah, there was probably 12, 15 that belonged to it. A lot of them are still here. Well, some of them, I shouldn't say a lot of them, but the ancestor, younger generations are still here.
Would your dad have any interaction with the county agent?
He was on civil defense
Yeah, he was.
because we've got his certificate.
Trying to think. I'm pretty sure he did, but I was trying to think of something. About the only thing was,
Anton was probably more,
yeah,
And-
Uncle Anton,
yeah,
he was
and his
big-
wife was a
big in
teacher,
that, you
and
know.
they more than taught the rest.
But you mentioned your grandfather's ledger. How has record keeping changed through the years?
Well, I'd still do it about like he does.
Pencil
No, I keep
paper.
all my tickets. I mean, when I used to not be that particular, but I got thinking, why not make a little effort and keep everything? And then if I go have my income tax figured, I don't have to worry about something that I didn't have a ticket on, but, still took it off. It's just a peace of mind to know that you've got tickets to back everything up.
Mm-hmm.
And,
We don't keep them online,
Mm-hmm.
but we do use online for looking up information and supplies or medicines for the cattle, such as that.
Well, I was going to ask you how you keep up with the latest in farm news and.
Well,
Catalogs too.
yeah, I've always taken farm magazines. I mean,
Yeah.
How do you learn about government programs?
well, usually one of the last ones to find out. They came out with this and on the cattle. I didn't know about it till my
Shane.
grandson said, he had mentioned it before, but I just kind of, well, that probably not. I'm one of these that don't like to be obligated.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I got to find out what people was getting, and then I got real interested in it. And we,
Drought relief.
that drought was late. So we going up next month, I think, and talk to them, got an appointment with them.
Have you I know you do a lot more cattle these days, but through the years, have you ever had crop insurance?
No.
No,
Okay.
never have.
Okay. Was there ever a point where you thought you were going to lose the farm?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Don't believe so.
Nope.
I guess there's always a way if you're willing to sacrifice a little bit.
Mm-hmm. How many children do you have?
3, we had 4 boys and lost second one. And we had 3 boys. 2 of them lived, one of them lived right over there and the other lived back over here. And
One in Texas.
one in Texas. And grandkid, the oldest grandson's right over here. And
One lives in the home place,
yeah,
and one lives in Norman.
Were they involved with 4-H growing up?
They never had 4-H here.
FFA?
While not even when our boys were in school. I think it about the time we moved back here in '73 that they had to make the choice between auto mechanics or 4-H and FFA, and they went with auto mechanics. And then eventually the auto mechanics went out too. And you know, as the school got smaller, our school's only like 350 kids total.
First through 12.
Uh-huh. Well, I guess they probably don't count the kindergarten and in that amount, and the 4-year-old class. They have 4-year-old class and then Head Start also. We used to have the diaper brigade, but the tiny tigers, I think, diaper tigers, I think was what they called them, but which were the Maud tigers. But anyway, for a few years they had that, and it was nice. They'd home or child care in the school system.
Mm-hmm.
Was pretty handy for parents, especially teachers.
Well, how have your neighbors changed through the years?
Well, there's still a few out there, very few, of the old timers. But it's changed a lot. So much of the land has been chopped up into smaller parcels. And we've got people living out in that part of the country. I don't have any idea who they are.
But we still have some of the basic
Yes, we
families.
still have some.
There's 3 other Centennial Farms in that same area.
But we have one neighbor that, especially while Mother was still alive, he was very helpful, him and his wife. I didn't have to worry about if Mother needed something. All she had to do was call them and they'd be there in a flash. They just lived just a little ways from her. And I guess there's probably other neighbors that would do the same thing. And I know we had one young couple over, I say young, they were younger than what we were. I was burning something over there one day and he saw the smoke, so he come running, whooped in there.
Call for help.
He said, well, I just saw that smoke and knew there was something close to the house here, so I'd come over to check you out. And I said, well, appreciate it. But, you don't find that everywhere.
I haven't noticed it driving out here today. We haven't really been in this part of the state a whole lot. Has oil and gas played a major role in the area?
Yeah.
That's what dried the town up, was when the oil and gas in '82, you know, whenever they, it really played a major part in keeping Maud alive.
But not so much today.
Well,
Yeah, we still have some, and there's several that are employed still with it. But all phases of it. Actually, like I said, our son builds locations,
Okay.
but there's still several units, you know, like the.
it's surprising. I didn't think it ever happened, but they've come in here and leased up land that I never would thought they'd leased. And, that's still...
Has it drove up the price of land in the area?
yes, it has.
And has that hurt or helped some people?
I don't know.
Depends on whether you're selling or buying.
Exactly.
We don't sell, but we would like to buy, maybe. But that's.
This used to be the cheapest place to buy land of anywhere I knew of. I'd keep up with those farm magazines, they tell you what land. But this area right here, you'd be surprised what I gave this farm. You'd be really surprised. It was cheap.
Mm-hmm.
According to nowadays prices.
You cannot even look at land for that now.
Mm-hmm.
And it has, in the last 10 years, it has really skyrocketed.
You keep the mineral rights.
No, you
What
just
we had, yes, that I won't never sell minerals.
Well, you mentioned getting a spanking behind the slush pit. Was that having to do with oil too?
Yes, they were.
And it was
that
on the
place,
property?
had 9 wells on it one time. Amarada came in there and drilled 9 wells. And when they pulled out, plugged the well, Amarada guy told my dad, he said, we figured we got 13% of the oil that's down there. You know, that was way back there in the, well, they were drilled in the
In the 30s.
39, 40, somewhere in there. So the technology now is so much greater than what it was then. But besides that, they're doing the horizontal bit too out there.
Well, are there any food memories, anything you really enjoyed that your mother cooked?
Oh Lord.
Any recipes she passed down to you?
Oh, yeah.
Well, you handle that part.
Well, one thing she did that I love mincemeat pie. But mincemeat, when we bought was either from the store in a jar or the little square, and you added water and cooked. She made mincemeat, her own, and it was delicious. Pear preserves.
As long as, Mother had potatoes or green beans or corn, it didn't take a whole lot to satisfy me.
Did she have a technique for killing a chicken?
Killing the chicken,
Yeah, she killed one
the
pretty.
old-fashioned.
How would she do it?
She'd either wring its neck or chop its head off. That's one of the two.
Put
Everybody seems to have their own technique.
right.
I never
Put its
get
head
into
under a
that
stick and
wringing the neck.
broomstick and and pick it, scald it, and killing hogs. Did y'all kill? I guess y'all killed hogs too.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah,
chain
their own.
still up in
The
that food out
community.
there where we.
The men in
Kill
the
the
community would get together and do them. Yeah. Some way with butchering the calf and then take it to the locker in town before you had deep freezes. And then can part of it. That's
My mother's mother had a way of making cornbread that was out of this world, and she could can beef that was really good. We'd go up there and eat with them a lot, and she could make a good dish out of that canned beef they had.
Don was talking about going to the cellar a while ago. When we went to the cellar, we always went to my aunt's, and we couldn't wait to get over there and get in the pickles or whatever she had that you could eat. Yeah, we'd sit and eat pickles while it stormed. But yeah, they canned beef, chicken, sausage, fried your sausage and packed it in a jar and then poured grease on it and turned it upside down, and the grease would form a seal beside your lid. Yeah. All those things.
I don't ever remember being hungry. That's one thing I can say about my mother and dad. They always had food. They might not have a whole lot of money, but we had food.
Might be rabbit or squirrel.
Yeah. I can remember one day it snowed, and the snow was about 8 or 10 inches deep. Uncle Antone came over, got Daddy, and I don't know whether Uncle John was with them or not, but they went rabbit hunting. And they come back with a bunch of rabbits out of it. And they fixed them some way or another, I don't know.
Fried them. That's what my grandmother did too. Squirrel. Loved to fry squirrel. Yep.
What's your favorite time on the farm? You have a favorite season, a favorite time of day?
Oh, I liked early mornings and late of the evening when it's, I guess when the sun goes down and kind of
Gets-
cools off. And
Gets so dark, you have to come in and quit working.
my favorite season is in spring when things start beginning greening up, and I guess it'd be my favorite time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, looking at the next 100 years, what do you hope happens to the family farm?
Well, I hope it's still in the family, and I hope the government don't mess around and mess the farm life up.
Totally.
And you know, it's kind of scary. Really is.
Anything else you want to share with us before we look at your photographs? And
Well,
Think of any more stories.
I think it's pretty well.
Got it covered.
all right. Well, we appreciate your time this
Oh, yeah.
morning, and
We've enjoyed it.
thank you so much.